Hey, folks, it's Nate. It's time I got back to the drawing board, and tonight, well, I'll talk a little bit about the weekend. It's quite the dust up, wasn't it? It's uh, it's been interesting, that's for sure. And really, what I want to talk about is not so much the drama itself, but kind of the direction that Comicsgate or indie comics is headed in. Um, And there are really, I think, a lot of lessons to draw from the war campaign debacle, if you ask me. Um, the biggest is that while for a long time we've said that uh, the comics industry is about hot dog vendors, people who try and sell, hot dogs to you, people who are offering you a product, there are still, you know, other issues that need to be confronted. Um, it's all well and good to say, good customer service, not attacking your fans, making good stories without an agenda shoved into them. I think those are all good, worthwhile things. But what's been shaping up to be the case for the last year or so, in my mind, is that um, we have to figure out how we're going to be treating each other too. And I don't mean memes or um, the some of the quote unquote ops that war campaign was running, so much as I mean, the people who actually want to be a part of the commentary or the creative side of things. How are they going to treat each other? And a lot of my thoughts on this date all the way back to Vox Day. Now, if you weren't following it, or you don't remember, or you don't even know who Vox Day is, a while ago, a very controversial, I'm not sure if Vox Day is a race realist or an ethno-nationalist or what you want to call him, but he's a sci-fi writer. How about that? That's primarily what he is. He writes novels and books, and he kind of heard about Comicsgate, and he was interested in moving into comics already. So he kind of tried to brand himself using the name of Comicsgate. And fair enough, Comicsgate was a open-ended movement, but a number of people banded together and kind of ran Vox Day off, and that really didn't sit right with me. I'm not because I'm a fan of Vox Day or I wanted to read any of the stuff he was looking at publishing. Him being run out of Comicsgate would have nothing to do with me getting in either of those capacities. I mean, he still released his books, and I still didn't read them, so I don't know how good they were or not. Um, it more had to do with the idea that um, people felt a need to run Vox Day off. I mean, if he could make a good story and he had an audience, you would think it would be prime pickings for Comicsgate. But the need was felt to try and keep him at arm's length. And for starters, Comicsgate was not even supposed to be about associations. It shouldn't have mattered whether Vox Day called himself Comicsgate. It should have mattered if he told good stories and related well to the customers. And it's been striking to me ever since then how often his name has been invoked whenever there's been drama in the community. It's like he's become this boogeyman. And I think a lot of this seems to rest at the well-intentioned feet of Ethan Van Sciver. I understand why Ethan is so protective of Comicsgate. When he was in a really bad place, Comicsgate gave him an out. It gave him fans who like him for who he is, fans who wanted to hear the stories he had to tell. Um, all of those are things that are very hard for an artist or an author to find. So of course, he wants to be protective of these people. Of course, he wants to celebrate his fans. Um, but at that moment, he took over. I mean, he not necessarily took over, but he did something he shouldn't have. Because if Comicsgate is a bunch of people who are trying to sell hot dogs, um, then where are we? We're all in the middle of City Park, and Comicsgate is City Park, and the people in it are the hot dog vendors. And Ethan saw a hot dog vendor walk into City Park he didn't like, and he ran him out. And ever since then, he has been branding himself the leader of the park. Um, I know that he repeatedly says he's not the leader. He doesn't want to be the leader, but I'm sorry. Once you've taken it upon yourself to run someone out of a movement, run someone out of City Park, say you can't set up shop here. Um, you're claiming ownership. It wasn't a just claim, and I don't think anyone who was involved in that, whether it be um, Ethan or uh, Edwin Boyette or your boy Zach, anyone who did that really had a right to do that. I also think it was stupid and it was short-sighted because it made um, fighting with people a part of how Comicsgate was defined. And ever since then, more and more drama has been creeping into the movement. And, it just all came to a head with this war campaign thing. If we're hot dog vendors and we're selling in Town Square or in City Park, we can't be running each other off. That's just not part of it. And that attitude has carried on into other people. Now, I don't know to what extent War Campaign and Ethan were really associated. It's my understanding that, at least for a while, some members of War Campaign were members of his, were not members, moderators in his live chats. And if that's the case, then yes, Ethan does kind of have a responsibility to take that mod power away from them. You can't have your customers running off other customers either, not with your endorsement anyway. And certainly, if you own a store, you can't have your businesses. You can't have people running off your business. But beyond that, like trying to have them pull down the war campaign, trying to strong arm them by threatening to block them, all of that was. It feels more like Ethan trying to claim control of a thing again, and it's just not what I like to see. I get it. War campaign are assholes. So what? Everyone has at least one. So why? You said they're not part of you. You blocked them all. You've taken away their wrenches. Okay, you've done as much as you can reasonably be expected to do. I don't like the direction we're going here. I don't like the idea that Comicsgate has to police these people, and I don't like the idea that everyone who says they support the ideals of Comicsgate is somehow Comicsgate. Clearly, there are a lot of differences over methods. There are a lot of differences over what constitutes good storytelling. There are a lot of differences over how to handle distribution, how to how to interact with fans, all kinds of differences. And trying to bring all these under one label seems quite officious to me. It seems like the move of someone who is trying to build up influence, chase clout, create a brand. Now, of course, everyone wants to create a brand, but as I've said before, um, there's the hot dog vendors who have their brand, and then there's the city park or the town square. That shouldn't have a brand. That can't be part of any one person's brand. Um, you don't you don't associate every storefront in the mall with the owner of the mall. Well, you kind of do because they have to pay to be there. So maybe that's not the best example. Let's stick with City Park. Um, Hot dog vendors are licensed, but the city that licenses them or permits them, gives them a permit, however it works in your city, um, is not endorsing or trying to control how the hot dog vendors market. They're not doing any of that stuff. And this obsession with the kinds of people who call themselves Comicsgate and how they behave seems to cut directly against the idea that comics are for everyone, even people who are jerks. And again, I understand that if your store has to protect its brand, then by all means, control who it employs, control who it associates with, control who you talk with, but don't try and control what's in the marketplace. And don't try and tell other stores how to run their business. Just because Doug and Ethan are on the outs doesn't mean they should be sniping at each other or sniping at people who talk to the other one. It's just, and I haven't actually seen much of that, but it definitely happens, and just not always from those two. Although I am kind of disappointed with some of the things Ethan has said about Doug. Anyways, my point is, we can't have the merchants policing the marketplace. That is up to the customers. You can't run people out of a movement and say it's for everyone. You can't say that it's a consumer revolt when the vendors are the ones who seem to be doing all of the decision making these days. And like I made a video a while back saying, yes, we absolutely, as the people who have said we want to buy better stories, we should embrace vendors coming and trying to sell us things. I have never had a problem with creators coming in and saying, we want to make comics. I love reading comics, and there are a number of comics that I want to read. But at the same time, they cannot also say, we are the consumer advocate. That's not the way it works. The people who create and the people who advocate for the consumer must be separate. The people who work in the marketplace and sell must be separate from the people who decide what the marketplace is. Otherwise, you do just have people who are, eventually you will have people who are trying to cut out competition. I'm not saying that's what Ethan was trying to do. That's just the reality of the situation. Sooner or later, that's what is going to happen. That's human nature. So yeah, if we want to be the new comics industry, we're going to have to work out how we're going to do that. And yeah, I know that there's no one blameless in this situation. There's been a ton of drama from all sides. There's been a lot of finger pointing, a lot of name calling, and I'm really not a fan of any of it. But what it boils down to is, for a while, we've been having people who are selling us product primarily running the marketplace. And that's unhealthy. And as long as that continues to be the case, fan clubs like War Campaign are going to warp the way the marketplace dynamic unfolds. And it's going to feel a lot like gatekeeping. It may even devolve to the point where it's actual gatekeeping. I'm not saying that. I'm not really up on what War Campaign did. I don't know if it was gatekeeping or not. But yeah, I really think we need to work that out. And I do also want to say that I don't think that IndieCron is the right answer. IndieCron is great. It's a great service. I like it. It's much closer to a food blog talking about hot dog stands than it is an actual approach to the marketplace. What we need there is we need someone who is going to just look at well, I don't know as we need anything. As someone who wants to create comics myself, I don't know as I can be a part of working out how the marketplace should work. What a lot of people call OG Comicsgate, people like Yellow Flash and Tug. I guess even Tug has a comic book that he's marketing now. But the guys who primarily looked at comics just to say whether they like them or not, I think it's going to fall to those guys to really work out how the customers are going to interact with the merchants going forward. And what I can say for sure is that fan clubs are not the way to go about it. And what happened this weekend is definitive proof of that. Anyway, that's all I got for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, there's a like button and a subscribe button down below. Use them as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.